Good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure to have you join us again for our second webinar in our VBold series. Tonight is a really fun night because we get to learn about the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network. So just a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. We just ask that you keep your mics on mute, and then there should be a box where you can chat your questions. So as questions come up, please feel free to put them in the box, and then we will try and answer as many of them as possible. So for this evening, we're going to hear from Executive Director Joyce Coleman, who will give us a description of the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network, or the Vpprn. And then I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Peter Merkel, Dr. Jen Gordon, and Diane Shaw this past week that will share a little bit more about what the Vpprn is and their role with the Vpprn and how the Vasculitis Foundation and the Vpprn work together to support patients and importantly, vasculitis research. So let's get started.
Thank you for joining us. So what is the Vpprn? Our Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network is the research arm of the Vasculitis Foundation. It's our patient-centered research network. And what does that mean? It means that this is where the patient's voice is most heard in research. It was created in 2014 and has over 2,000 patients enrolled in the network. We're so excited about that. The patients are involved from what questions are we going to ask? What research should we do? The patients are asked the question, they are involved in study design, and they participate in the communication piece, and they also answer the questions. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. So before we take a deeper dive into what the Vpprn is, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves and kind of the role that you play with the Vpprn. Dr. Merkel, would you like to begin?
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Merkel. I'm a professor of medicine and epidemiology and the chief of rheumatology at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I am the investigator, co-PI, for the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network, which I was able to found through our Vasculitis Clinical Research Consortium in collaboration with the Vasculitis Foundation. It has been that partnership from the very beginning, and I'm happy to be here.
Diane?
I'm Diane Shaw, and I'm the outgoing co-principal investigator for the Vpprn.
Great, and Jen?
I'm Jen Gordon, and I'm the incoming co-investigator for the Vpprn.
So Dr. Merkel, could you please give us a description of what the Vpprn is and why the VF's involvement with the Vpprn has been so important?
So the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network is exactly as its name implies. It is a research network that studies vasculitis, all forms of vasculitis, which is already unique as well, and it's patient-powered in a number of ways. Patients are providing the data. It's patient-reported data on their disease, their treatment, how they feel, how they've done. And we have been able to demonstrate those data are quite reliable and very useful for research. Additionally, patients are partners in the research projects, helping deciding what projects and how to do the projects, in addition to being research subjects, if you will. This is a group of thousands of patients who provide data that we then use for other research. This was founded from the beginning as a collaboration between the Vasculitis Clinical Research Consortium, which is an international research network at major vasculitis research centers that I direct, and it's been funded by NIH, and the Vasculitis Foundation. It is a partner of the VCRC already. These two entities represent the investigative community and the patient community. And from the very beginning, we've partnered to create the Vpprn, which is a unique research platform that doesn't overlap so much as it complements the kind of work we do at expert centers. And as the work we've shown, we've been able to utilize the Vpprn for some unique and important research. Additionally, it's also a great place to get new investigators to come in, including our trainees and Vasculitis Clinical Research Consortium / Vasculitis Foundation fellows. And so we're always looking for opportunities to leverage all of the different research and other resources we have. And the Vpprn is an important part of that community.
So Diane, you've been involved with the Vpprn since its very inception. And so I wanted to hear from you as a patient partner and the co-PI about what makes the Vpprn innovative? What makes it different and exciting for not only investigators, but also the patient community?
I would use three words. One is collaboration. There is a strong collaboration between investigators and patients. I would say engagement. Patients are really engaged in research. They're involved. They're not sitting on the sidelines. And empowerment. By being involved in research, I think it gives patients a sense that they're doing something to help themselves and other patients with their illness. The other innovation is that some of the studies are patient-initiated research ideas, things that are important to patients, like, why am I so tired all the time? Why did it take me so long to get diagnosed? Is anyone else having problems at work with their illness? What if I get pregnant? These are issues that are important to patients, and these are some of the issues that are being investigated. From the get-go, there were working groups to speed and develop this whole process. I was on the RIGHT group, which is Research, Innovation, Planning, and Experiments. The Vpprn established a process for collecting and categorizing patient research ideas. And they were all run through the maze of scientific merit, feasibility within the Vpprn, and importance to patients. And any other ideas that didn't fit these criteria were sent to the VF to provide information to patients. It's an integral working process, which is very different and is very exciting for patients because we're used to waiting for the next clinical trial result to be reported. This is faster. There's more data on all the patients. It's really, really moving things forward in a very good way.
So Diane, along the same lines, can you tell us what your personal experience has been like as a co-PI of the Vpprn?
I have learned so much. I've gotten to know the investigators. I've gotten to know a lot of patients. I've learned more about the research process and that whole idea of trying to take a project from inception to manuscript and publication and results. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. The other important thing for patients to know is that if they want to get involved, you don't have to have a scientific background. The Vpprn provides training so that if you want to get involved, you can learn how to become involved in research. That, to me, is another powerful idea.
That's wonderful. So Jen, as a longtime volunteer and patient partner, not only with the Vpprn, but also with the Vasculitis Foundation, can you tell me, as the incoming co-PI, what your hopes and vision are for the Vpprn as you move forward?
Well, first let me say that as a patient, it's a privilege to have the seat at the table to represent the voice of my fellow patients. Providing the patient perspective to the Vpprn helps guide research in vasculitis toward areas that are priority for the vasculitis community. I'm also a biomedical researcher, so as a research scientist myself, I understand how valuable the Vpprn patient registry is for conducting research to better understand vasculitis. I'm looking forward to continue to build on the amazing work that's been done by the team so far, in particular to focus on research projects that are of most importance to vasculitis patients and their families. And I'm interested in working on how we can communicate the research findings to patients and to the community to keep everyone informed about what the registry is doing and how we're advancing vasculitis research.
So, Dr. Merkel, can you tell us about the impact you feel and have seen the Vpprn have on the vasculitis research community?
I think the Vpprn has had a very positive impact on the vasculitis research community in a couple of ways. One is it's bringing an entire new dimension and a new type of data that we can use, which is patient-delivered data. But it's not that it's that different data. It's just more data. It's from a different perspective, although it's very complementary to the data we usually do. It also has brought in a very efficient process for doing research. Diane mentioned that. It costs, because it's about cost often when you do research. Research can be very costly. It costs us as much to send and recruit data from a single patient than it does from 500 patients, and we can do it all at once. That is not the case when I'm doing and seeing patients here at the University of Pennsylvania by any means. So it's an efficient process, it's a novel process, and it has opened up, just as it's opened up the ability for patients to join from wherever they live, which is a great opportunity for patients that if they don't happen to live within driving distance or don't have the resources to be able to fly back and forth to see me here in Philadelphia. It democratizes the research to some extent. It also helps democratize some of the research for investigators because you can use our data from anywhere. And we have been successful in recruiting younger and earlier stage investigators, which is vital to keep the community going to use our data. And we've been able to do some unique things rapidly. One example would be the COVID research that we did. Very rapidly we pivoted because let's face it, all of us were only thinking about the pandemic. How does it influence ourselves and our families and our communities? And we were able to very quickly do research that was important to patients with vasculitis. We would never have been able to do another way.
That leads me into kind of a follow-up question of, can you highlight for us some of the most impactful studies that the Vpprn has already completed or initiatives that are still ongoing?
Well, it's choosing among your favorites. We've done so many really high-quality studies, and I think that's important. This research is high quality. It's being published in good medical journals, which is another test about whether or not you're doing research that matters, that is, your peers feel is good. There are a number of studies. You mentioned the study about delay in diagnosis, the so-called Journey study. Well, that really opened up people's eyes to the struggles patients have even to get a diagnosis and how often they're going to the emergency room, et cetera, across the different vasculitities. That led to a deeper thinking on our part about how can we actually look at data to help get a diagnosis earlier. And it has led to a very sophisticated study that we're doing we call PANDA, which is an acronym for predictive analytics using data. And this is, we're doing this with the Vpprn and additional investigators. And this is a project that is going to look at data that people have in their health systems. Can we predict who will get vasculitis even before they get it, which sounds very science fiction-y, but it really is an option to say, can we help clinicians and patients say, think about vasculitis now, and we can delay that often really either costs patients their lives or can cause some disability and problems. So we've gone from simple sort of survey questions, which can be important, to very sophisticated analyses, to other things such as the Vpreg, this is my teacup, and this is the Vpreg study, which is a registry for patients who are pregnant. We are very much in need of understanding pregnancy and vasculitis better. And so there's a wide range. Those are a couple of the highlights. There are many more I could say, but those are a few that come to mind right away.
That's fantastic. So this is a question both for Diane and Jen. How do you feel as co-principal investigators, how do you feel that the Vpprn is impacting patients and our community directly? I know both of you have touched on it a little bit, but if you could give us your perspective on how the Vpprn is seen within the patient community and the impact that it carries with it, especially as we publish research, et cetera. Diane, do you want to start?
I feel like it has impacted the patient community in a very positive way. There they're involved. They're in touch with other patients. It was the next logical step for the Vasculitis Foundation to take. They funded, it started out with being support and information because there wasn't the internet. And then it moved to funding research with investigators. And now it's involving patients in research in a very real way. I think it's a very exciting time for patients to be able to be involved in research and to ask questions that they would like to have answers for about their disease. So to me, it's really engaging and empowering patients in just wonderful ways.
That's wonderful. And Jen?
Yeah, I agree with Diane, and I would also add that the ability of the patients to work directly with researchers to build our community together. I think the Vpprn is a fantastic way to connect patients and clinicians together so we can educate each other about vasculitis.
Okay, this is a question actually for everyone. As the Vpprn progresses and evolves, what is the hope? What's the aspiration for even just this next year? Where do we hope to be in a year from now? Dr. Merkel, would you like to start?
Yes. Where do I think the Vpprn is going? I think we're going, bigger, better, more, which sounds sort of overly ambitious, but that's been our trajectory. I think we would like to see even more patients and more patients from more countries involved. So what really runs research is high-quality data, especially the kind of research that we're doing. The more patients that participate and give us their data and partner with us, the more we can do from a research standpoint. And not just on the more common types of vasculitis, but even on the less common, even more so on those. So I think more patients joining, more data that we have, and bringing more investigators and patient partners into the mix so we can ask important questions that are important scientifically to investigators and to patients alike, and do more research that we wouldn't otherwise do. The key is the more research, the more we understand about these diseases, the better we will be for taking care of people, diagnosing, and changing lives.
Jen?
Yes, I think that's definitely what we're all looking forward to doing in the next year. And I think one of the ways we do that is to build a community to strengthen our interaction with each other, patient to patient, and also with the research community, because we're all focused on the same goal, which is to finding better treatments and better diagnosis for vasculitis.
Diane?
I'm excited about the work that the Vpprn is doing with the Autoimmune Research Collaborative, taking it into an even broader context, partnering with clinicians and scientists, looking into 3 other autoimmune diseases with a lot of drugs in common for patients. I think we can expand our horizons, get new research ideas, and also in connecting with the other patient advocacy groups for these diseases, grow the Vpprn in more ways and become a stronger organization.
So would anyone like to give us, expand a little bit more on the relationship between the Vpprn and the Vasculitis Foundation?
So what's really important and meaningful is that at this point, the Vpprn is really the research arm of the Vasculitis Foundation. So we are integrated, the Vprn is integrated to VF, the VF is integrated to Vpprn and the VCRC and the work we do in the vasculitis research community. And so the support we receive from the VF and the support we give back is all part of this dynamic and partnership as we build this enterprise. You also asked, where do I think it's going? Another place we're going is to continue to make our research operation sustainable, financially sustainable, research sustainability. It is important to recognize that even with online research, it costs money to keep the infrastructure going. We have staff, we have technology, we have data security. And We have been successful in getting some funding, but as in all research enterprises, it's important to keep that going so that we can maintain the opportunities for investigators and patients to ask important questions.
Well, I think that for patients, it's really important because that you have both the VF and the Vpprn, because patients can only do so much. They're living with their illness. They're going to see their doctors. This is a way to be involved. This is a way to shape research, to be involved in research, and move everything forward. Find out answers to questions that they're asking, that they want to know. How can I live with this disease? What about this? What about that? This is a way to get at those questions. And by being involved, it's a path forward for you.
I think this is an opportunity for us to contribute our own data, to work together, to be able to collaborate directly with researchers and to help us learn more about vasculitis and from our own perspective as well as from the clinician's perspective.
We have built a research infrastructure that works, that is exciting, and it keeps the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network keeps patients, that's the P, in the picture, and it keeps research in the front lines. And it's been an exciting journey, and I'm looking forward to the next phase.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here today and for giving us this excellent insight into the Vpprn, the work that the Vpprn is doing, and the potential for not only the research, but also our patient community to be involved in answering the questions that are important to investigators and patients.
Hi, my name is Jason Springer, and I am co-director of the Vasculitis Clinic at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And so I'm involved with the Vpprn in terms of validating the registry. So the Vpprn is a patient registry that we get all the information from patients. It's a very valuable resource in terms of for researchers because these are rare diseases, and so it allows us to have a lot of participants really worldwide. And it's also valuable from a patient standpoint because this is a way that you can easily participate in research, but also voice your opinion regarding what you feel like should be studied.
I hope you all enjoyed and learned a lot about the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network, and really it's generated some questions. So you can ask our guests, because they have graciously come back and are here to answer your questions this evening as we go through, and we'll talk more about the relationship between the VF and the Vpprn and answer any of your questions. So just to give a little kind of a preview of some of the questions that are coming, because they're rolling in as the evening has been going on, and some of them are just exceptional. So the first one we'd like to tackle is, what are the challenges for the future of the Vpprn?
I think the challenge is keeping the energy moving, keeping us going forward, new research ideas, more members that join us. So I think it's about keeping the intellectual momentum going. I'm pretty sure we're going to do that. We've continued to do that for years. The challenges include financial sustainability. We have options for that through generous donors and through grants that we receive. And the challenges are to continue to raise our own expectations for excellence, the excellent level of quality, our excellent collaboration across the world, really. We have investigators from many countries involved in this. And I think the challenge is to keep us in the forefront of asking and answering questions that matter in the lives of patients with vasculitis.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually another question that we just received, which is, how do I suggest ideas to the Vpprn if I have a research idea?
Okay, Caitlin, you might want to answer that, but we have.
Do you mind? So, in my, Yeah, great. In my previous role, I was the network manager for the Vpprn, and so I lovingly say that it's my baby since I've been there since the very beginning, and now I've just recently transitioned to my role with just the VF, although I still am very involved with the Vpprn. And so one of the key things that we put together even before the launch was conceptually, how do we get patient voice, not just from our patient partners that sit in our on our steering committee, not just from those in the working groups, but from the broader community that we are asking to share their data with us. And so that was a key element that we worked into the Vpprn even before our launch. And so we currently have, if you are enrolled and a participant in the Vpprn, there is a place where you can actually submit a research question. And then that goes to our working groups with our investigators and our patient partners. And we actually kind of distill all of those questions into larger buckets. So similar questions will go into similar buckets. And then we review them and see which ones have the most priority based on how many people were submitting similar questions. And then we have an entire process for reviewing that and starting to generate the research ideas that come from the questions that are submitted to the Vpprn. Thanks for letting me take that one. It's been a pleasure reviewing all of the research questions. They don't fall on deaf ears. And so over the years, it's been a great experience to see the direction and importance of things like a journey to diagnosis. We want hard data on that. Or for our VAS work study, how does vasculitis impact your ability to work? And of course, Vpreg, which, is near and dear to my heart as well, and a project that I continue to stay involved in. So another question that we had is, how does my donation impact the Vpprn? I think this is an exceptional one.
I'm not sure always to whom you're asking, but if you're asking me, and I think we could ask Dr. Gordon and Michelle to answer as well if they're on. Mm-hmm. But I think, how does it impact? It impacts directly. I think it impacts, I would say it impacts because it costs money to run research. We are efficient, but we're not free. And it costs money to maintain data quality, to maintain data security, to pay our network manager, to pay people who do the data, et cetera. So there is infrastructure costs that we have to do it. I think the other way is it actually is heartwarming. It's sort of it's really great that people want to support the work we do. And I think when you support the Vasculitis Foundation, whether it's the Vpprn or it's the fellowship or it's for symposium education, it says we value this organization. We're part of this organization. That's why I give to the VF.
And Diane, you may want to speak to this as well as the former president of the board of the Vasculitis Foundation.
Okay. The VF and the Vpprn are lean, mean, efficient groups. So when people give their money, they're not giving it to things that the money shouldn't be spent on. The money is used very wisely, very judiciously, and to impact as large an idea or concept or project as it can. I think that, as I said earlier, that the Vpprn is the logical extension of research from where the VF started. And I think that's really important because people want to know if they're giving to an organization that it's being used, the funds are being used responsibly. And I can say they are.
That's wonderful. So this is another question that, Jen, you may be able to answer for us, which is, what do you think creatively is going to be the next step for the Vpprn? And Dr. Merkel touched on this a little bit, but for generating additional research ideas that will impact how research in vasculitis is conducted.
Yeah, so this comes up with the challenges as well. Everything we've seen through the last year and a half or so of COVID, we've found new ways to communicate, new ways to build and to strengthen our community. And now we have an opportunity add on to that and see what can we do to have a further impact. How can we use our online platforms to connect with people because we are a virtual network? And how do we turn this into research? And how do we connect our patient partners with the clinicians to come up with our next set of ideas? So I think that's a real exciting area that I'm looking forward to work on in the coming year.
Fantastic. So another one that just came in, and this, Dr. Merkel and Dr. Gordon, if you want to speak to this. So the question was, is it possible to study specific diseases or only vasculitis as a large group?
Is yes, you can do both. We actually frequently, yeah, we can do it all. We can frequently want to study specific diseases because they are different. And so we ask the questions for specific diseases, and some questions are different for different diseases, of course. We also like to study across the vascularities because there are commonalities in terms of the biology, pathophysiology we call it, and the experiences that patients have with rare, weird diseases. So we do both. And of course, some diseases are just more common and we have more patients with it for a variety of reasons. And so sometimes it's just more likely we're going to study one that's more common, but we may group the other ones together to still get answers. Another example just from our recent is the work we've done in COVID, where we were able to publish data that was about the experience for patients with vasculitis in general, but we also reported data for individual vascularities, individual types. So I think we really do both, and we're very open to specific questions for specific types of vasculitis.
Great. And Jen, maybe you would like to speak a little bit to both your involvement in the broader Vpprn as the incoming co-patient PI, as well as being the lead patient partner in the EGPA registry.
Yeah, thanks, Kaylin. So as you mentioned, I've been the patient partner with the EGPA registry, and this is a follow-on for what Dr. Merkel just said. So we may be studying what happens with EGPA, but since there are these other cousins, the other forms of ANCA-associated vasculitis like GPA and MPA, by comparing what happens in EGPA to the others, we learn about each other. There's so many things that we have in common, and then what are the differences? And how do we compare what we might learn about small vessel vasculitis versus large vessel vasculitis that can help us understand if one type of treatment works for one disease, why would it work or not work for another? So we have an opportunity to connect the dots there. So I'm really interested in all the types of vasculitis. I learn so much every time I'm reading about it. So being able to go from the EGPA registry over to the Vpprn is a real great opportunity for me to learn even more, and hopefully for everybody to learn and grow our research network.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I want to especially thank our guest speakers and telling us all about the Vasculitis Patient-Powered Research Network and its impact on both vasculitis research, our vasculitis community, and the impact it has on improving the lives of patients with vasculitis. We hope that you've enjoyed this webinar and will attend our upcoming VBold webinar, where we will talk about vasculitis centers. And if you feel inspired by what you've heard tonight, and if you feel inspired to help support these programs that continue to impact our community in a positive way, then I strongly encourage you to click the Mobile Cause link below and share a gift with the Vasculitis Foundation to support programs exactly like our fellowships, the Vpprn, and our vasculitis centers. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for spending time with us.